All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Americanisms. And welcome again. We have Leon with us. Hello, Leon. How are you this morning?
Oh, pretty good, Ben. How's it going with you? Hey, everyone.
Great, great. Thank you for joining for another exciting episode of what makes someone more or less American, what is on the mind of an American, and how we think, how we feel, what we like, what we don't like. So, all right, let's get started. Having been out of the U.S. now for like 2.5 years, I'm just thinking about some of the things that I miss, and like one of the things on this list is a garbage disposal. I think
Mm,
that's a
mm.
total American thing. I mean, if people don't know what that is, it's essentially like in your kitchen sink, and there's a blender built into the drain. So you can essentially, basically, after like your food scraps or whatever, you can just put it in your drain, and then you push a button that's on the wall, like a light switch, and it grinds everything up, and you're done. It's so simple, and it's great. It's good for lazy people like me, and not been anywhere where there's a garbage disposal outside of the U.S. Have you seen that before?
Not outside of the US. I think this is a US thing. I don't know about Canada, but I think this is a more North America thing. So I don't think other countries have this, and they're puzzled by it. They said you actually have like one of those grinders in there. So yeah, it just grinds the food, and instead of just throwing it in the garbage, and they're baffled by it. They just can't seem to understand why we would have something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would put pretty much anything other than bones in the garbage disposal. Like even eggshells
Mm-hmm.
can go in there as well.
Hmm. As long as you all don't overdo it, like too much
Yeah,
food in there. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
I didn't realize this, but garbage disposals, it's not actually like a sharp blade. The food doesn't get actually chopped up by like a blade or a knife in there. It's not blade spinning. It's actually just sort of this dull, I don't know. It's like this dull, imagine like a super dull knife, right? Like there's no,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's just some dull object spinning your food. And because it's hitting the wall of the garbage disposal, it disintegrates that way. I didn't know that.
Hmm. Mm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I did have like an object in there, like maybe a spoon accidentally that fell in or something like that, grind
Yeah.
and you can hear it.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to play around with that, and
Yeah.
especially children put their hand in there, because they think it's, safe, but it's really not. I mean, you can actually chop off your fingers in there, so got to be
Oh,
careful.
you can hurt yourself, but
Hmm.
surprisingly, it's not a sharp knife or blade. But anyway, I missed that. It's very convenient, and I've never seen it outside of the U.S. And I feel like every home in the U.S. Kitchen has a garbage disposal, and I think that's a very, very, very American thing.
Yes, I agree 100% on it. Yeah. One
Okay.
thing too that I want to say is Sweet 16. I mean, other countries really don't have something like that where it's a Sweet 16 when they turn 16. This is only for girls or young women.
Yes.
They actually celebrate when they turn 16, and they celebrate it as almost like, I don't know, you probably not like a wedding per se, but it's like a big party if you have the money for it. It's like a debutante. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what? So, what is it? I actually don't even know what is the significance of turning 16, except that like when I was young, 16 was the age we were able to get our license, driver's license. But
Yes, correct.
they're really into the Sweet 16 thing. It's a big celebration. But what is the significance of that number? And Americans are obsessed with the Sweet 16
I
thing.
think, in my opinion, I believe that it's a woman, a young girl turning into a young adult. So
Uh,
it's like that celebration of being mature in a way. But 16 is kind of that number before you actually turn to an adult. It's like a recognition of a young woman, I guess you can say, developing, maybe, when they have like a period, for example, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, here in Brazil, we have something like that. It's 15 years old, and it's crazy here in Brazil. I mean, when they turn 15, they celebrate it. It's almost like a wedding. I
Uh,
mean, it's huge. I don't know if they want to showcase and show off their, you know, their wealth or something, but they just make it into an event, and you know, they have dances and you know, a dance routine and all kinds of things, you know, cakes and a little bit of candy sweets around the cakes. I mean, like if you look at that decoration and everything and the money they spend, it's almost like a wedding here in Brazil. So I'm like, wow, I'm blown away by it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Mexicans do that as well, right? They do that quinceañera.
Yeah, I think it's for anything with a Spanish descent, you know, from Spain. I think it's very common to have this kind of debutante type thing. Like, I don't know if it's the age is 15 or 16, but
Yeah.
yeah, every Spanish speaking country, I believe, has this. I could be wrong. I don't know about Italy, but I think Italy may have something like this too, if I'm not wrong.
Oh, I'll have to ask my Italian friends. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I just find it pretty interesting. You know, I was like, why 15? You know, for us it's 16. I think it should be 16. It's a big thing, like especially for girls. Guys, we don't have anything, you know.
No, we
We
don't.
just
Yeah,
yeah, we just turned 16. That's it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so do oh, what about this? It's impolite to ask people what they paid for their house or any big. Do you believe that's
Hmm.
true? Americans avoid asking people things like that,
Yeah,
right?
you don't want to ask personal things unless you're really good friends, you know, like in a normal maybe first or second meeting. You
Mhm.
don't want to be saying, "Oh, how much is your house? How much did you purchase?" I mean, that's pretty private. It's almost the same thing in asking a lot of private things like in your first meeting. "Oh, how old are you?" or
Yeah.
"Are you single? Are you married?" and you know, that kind of thing. So, "Oh, how much you make for, you know, at your company or your work?" You know, these things you don't ask, and it's almost like a taboo. You just don't ask unless you're really good friends with that person, especially in the first time meeting. So, yeah.
Yeah,
What's your take on that? Yeah.
it's funny you say that because I don't even feel comfortable asking my family how much they paid for things, like how much
Hmm.
for their. So I don't even do that.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that definitely there are questions that are sort of off limits or impolite to ask. The
Hmm.
purchases being one of them. The other
Hmm.
you mentioned, like you know, like at work or whatever. Other things that Americans would never ask or talk about at work, I've noticed, and is for example, things like, do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend? Do you have kids? They
Yes.
ask questions like that, like unless the person brings it up, like, oh, my wife and I are going on vacation.
Hmm.
If that person didn't bring up their significant other, you should
Hmm.
not ask them if they have a significant other. That's
Yes.
right.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of the downfall, like a lot of foreigners or people that's non-American, they don't understand because to them it's like it's normal. And probably that's what they learn at school, you know. So a lot of times they say, do you have any kids or are you married? And
Right.
usually it's something private. You don't ask that in the first meeting. So, but they don't realize that to them it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's very common for people, international people, to ask that question, and that's really a no-no in US. You don't want to say that. You can automatically see it in the American's face that it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he just asked me that.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah. If I
Yeah.
up, don't ask. That's yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And same
What?
goes for
Mm-hmm.
what other questions or things that. Oh, you know what? I was talking to somebody recently. I think she's from India, and
Mm-hmm.
saying how they were talking about how much they get paid at work, and I'm like, wow, because you know in America you never talk to your coworker
Yes,
you make. That's
exactly.
total no no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think a little bit now of it is kind of changing with the new generation where they're actually sharing and asking things about how much are they making to get
Hmm.
an idea so they can kind of negotiate with their employers. But
Hmm.
that's still a new beginning. I don't think that's really happening. I mean, there's just maybe just a handful of people doing that, but I've seen it on TikTok and some of the social medias. But in all honesty, in the U.S., that's something you just don't talk about. Yeah.
Right, right. We don't definitely don't talk with our coworkers about how much we're making. Um,
Yes.
I wonder if with some companies it's even allowed. Like, do you know of companies that actually specifically say don't? You're not
No,
supposed to.
yeah, I mean it's part of the guidance, the guide rule, the policies and uh they say this specifically about things about, not asking about other people's salary. I think not in those specific words, but there are something there that gets addressed, like your appearance, how you should present yourself and, code of conducts or something like that. Code
Mm,
of ethics, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. And what do you think about the yellow school buses? Because a lot of people, when they see it on TV, they say, are school buses really like that? Are they really, you know, yellow color? And are there any seat belts on school buses? And they're just baffled by it. And I don't think school buses color will ever change. I think it'll always be yellow. What do you think on that?
Yeah, it's like taxi cab yellow, isn't it? The same kind of yellow.
Yes,
Uh,
correct.
do you know what's really interesting about those school buses is that why are they always so old now? It could be because it's been a long time since I've been a kid taking a
Hmm.
school. And actually, I never took a school bus, but since I was a kid or in elementary school, it's been many, many years. But
Hmm.
do they still use these old school buses? I mean, they smell really bad. They seem like high polluters.
I believe they do, not maybe they're trying to upgrade it, change it, put seat belts, things like that, be the
Mhm.
regulations. But I still believe that there are some old school buses out there, but they are trying to renovate it. But school buses is not just something that takes you to school in the morning, pick you up at your house and take you to school and back to your home.
No.
School buses is also used for like if you're an athlete, like if you're in sports, so you go from one city to another where you're competing with other teams and you get on this school bus. So it's pretty interesting and pretty cool. Yeah.
I do remember taking school, now that you mention it, on school field trips on a school bus.
Yes, exactly. Field
Yes.
trips too. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Those weren't the most comfortable as I think back right now because they had those windows that kind of got jammed. It was hard to open.
Yes.
Didn't have air conditioning and the seats were upright and it was terrible. Come to think of it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting, but yeah, the problem about school buses is a lot of bullying's happen inside the school bus, and the bus driver can't really do anything because he's keeping his eyes on the road, he's driving. So when kids in the back and being bullying other people, I mean, or other children, that's a big thing. And it's true what you see on television,
Yeah.
that the bullies bully these other childrens in the back of the school bus. This really happens.
Yes, that's true. And I mean the bus driver is probably like, no, this is like above my pay grade. I'm not even
Yeah,
pay attention.
exactly.
You know.
Right. Uh-huh.
But there is some nostalgia surrounding those school buses because I've seen where people have taken these school buses and like they've renovated them,
Hmm.
got them, and then they'll turn them into like their home. Have you seen this?
I've seen a couple of them. I've seen it, and they use it like instead of a camper where they go road trips and camp somewhere. Yeah, I've seen something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but not a whole lot. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's very common back in the 60s, right? Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. 60s and maybe early 70s. I think it was pretty common in where they renovate these school buses and turn them into a hipster type things and they go on road trips and going from, across America from East Coast to West Coast and vice versa kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. You
Yeah.
know what? The speaking of going from East Coast to West Coast, I feel like road trips are kind of common. They're pretty common in the U.S. Like it's a thing. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, it
And
is.
I've done a cross country road trip three times. Three
Oh,
times.
have you really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's fascinating because
Uh-huh.
it's like the size of a continent, and it takes if you
Yeah.
did nothing but drive, it'll take you one
Mhm.
week to drive from west to east, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was my question to you. I mean, how long did it take you? I mean, at least a week, right?
Yeah, but see, here's the thing: if you're doing it for fun, if it's a vacation,
Hmm.
you're not gonna be taking just a week.
Yeah.
You're in it for a month, because you're not just going and coming back. That's already 2 weeks,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Now,
So
did you take that Route 66? I mean, that's fascinating. I've always wanted to do that, but I've never got into that.
yeah,
Maybe from
I did.
East Coast to, I mean, from West Coast to East Coast. And what is it? I mean, describe that to us. Like, what's your take on Route 66? Because that's a very popular route, right?
Yeah, it is. I don't know actually know the history behind Route 66, but yes, it's very popular. And I think it so there's you can take the 10, you can take Interstate 10 all the way to
Hmm.
All the way to northern Florida, right? I've done that.
Hmm.
I've also gone up a bit, and when you go a little bit north, like toward Utah and Montana, I think that's Route 66.
Hmm.
So I've done
Yeah,
that as well.
nice.
In that direction, I have gone all the way to Minnesota. Uh,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
then on another trip I took, and then I also took like I think it was 40 coming back through the middle of the country, and then on another trip I took I think it was also the 10. Guys, I don't remember, but the two that I remember most vividly is my drive, on the 10 from
Hmm.
LA all the way to Florida, and then the other one
Hmm.
a little north and then east. And
Mm.
but road trips are wonderful. I love them, and because America is such a big country, it's if you're
Hmm.
somebody who likes driving and seeing the landscapes totally change. Excuse me,
Hmm.
slowly change. It's a great thing to do if you don't get bored easily and you like looking at. If you're like an observer, like I am, I love looking at
Hmm.
them, studying
Hmm.
things.
Did you encounter any state troopers or anything like that? Did you see anyone on the road like that, or
Oh
is it
yeah,
pretty safe? Because you're like in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you can be traveling like so many miles and there's nothing, right?
yes. Yes. So there was and this was recent. Actually, the last time I did a cross country road trip was during the pandemic, the first year of the pandemic. That
Mm.
because Americans will not sit still, and
Mm.
so
Right.
I got my car and I was in Wyoming, and in Wyoming, there are stretches where there's nothing. I literally was able
Hmm.
to just stop the car on the side of the road, get out, and I took a
Hmm.
picture of me just sitting in the middle of the highway. There was nobody. For,
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
yeah, and it was fascinating. Also because the sky was amazing.
Hmm.
Amazing. Yes, it's
Wow.
cross country trips are really something, man, and
Uh-huh.
I think it's a real American thing because whenever I talk to my European friends or Europeans about driving that type of distance, they're like, "Why?"
Hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I drove in Montana and it's the middle of nowhere and you see just nothing but a prairie and
Yes.
I mean it's a beautiful thing, but after a while it's like, oh my God, it's just like, it's like you said, it's funny because you can just literally park somewhere and just sit there and
Hmm.
just take in all that, fresh air and all that yeah, all that nature. Yeah.
They don't call it big sky for nothing because it really
Hmm.
big sky. Um,
Hmm.
it's amazing. I think that if you have the time and the inclination, I think you won't be disappointed if you took a road trip
Hmm.
across the US. It's
Hmm.
I
Now, what about like you think instead of taking a road trip and driving because some people may not like it, but actually getting on a train, cross-country train, maybe from West Coast to East Coast? Have you tried that? What do you think about that?
I've never tried that, but the few times that I priced a train trip, it's actually not cheap. It's actually quite expensive
Hmm.
compared
Yes, correct.
to
It's almost like a plane ticket, right?
more. Sometimes it's more,
Mm,
especially if you
wow.
factor in the time it takes you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Have
Wow.
have
Okay.
you taken a train trip?
I've taken a train, but not really that far, just in the Southern California. That's it. I mean, for me to take a train trip, I'd rather drive or take plane. Yeah.
So what did you do? Did you do like because I know some people take the train from LA or to San Diego?
Yeah, to San Diego, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. But I heard that from LA to San Francisco is a really nice train ride because you see the coastline, right? So
I
that's
heard.
a really good thing to do. Yeah.
The problem though is that once you get there, you're still gonna have to rent a car, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But when you're in San Francisco, the transportation there is really good, right? You got
Yeah,
the BART system and the bus system, so it's really good compared to LA, right?
Okay, yeah. If you're in San Francisco, yes, you could get away with
Yeah,
not having a car.
yeah.
And
But if
then
you're coming from Frisco to LA, then that's a different story. Mm.
exactly, but if you're going from LA to San Diego, when you now San Diego's really spread out too,
Ah,
so
yes.
you're
Yeah,
car.
correct. Yeah.
So I feel like it like American cities, many American cities are car dependent. So even though you can use public transportation to get to that city, you're still going to need a car once you get there, unless you're in like Chicago, New York,
Hmm.
that kind of thing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
No way around not using a car. And I know people who visited LA from other countries, and they didn't rent a car, and they're like, I didn't have that great of a time in LA. I'm like, because you didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how do you feel? I mean, for me, I always tell my students is like if you ever want to visit LA, you have to have at least a minimum of 2 weeks. If you're gonna visit LA for 1 week, don't even bother. Just go to New York or Miami or Chicago or something like that. But if you're gonna go to LA, 1 week is not enough. You gotta at least have a minimum of 2 weeks. Maybe 1 week in Frisco, San Francisco, okay, that's cool. But LA, there's just too many things to do. And
There.
1 week is just too short. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right because LA is first of all it's gargantuan. It's beyond the
Hmm.
comprehension of most people in terms of how big
Hmm.
the city is.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so many things to do. You could even go to Catalina. If you can't go to Hawaii, just go to Catalina, right? Take
Yeah,
that boat ride. Yeah.
yeah, that's a day or two already.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
But so the thing is that because LA is so big that like, even just driving from Hollywood to the ocean to Santa Monica,
Hmm.
that's no, that's an hour. That could be
That's brutal. Yeah,
yeah,
that's being kind. That's like with no traffic, 1 hour.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Many years ago, I lived in the West Side, Santa Monica.
Mm.
It was very easy
Hmm.
for me because I was a surfer, and it was very easy for me to surf in the
Hmm.
morning, surf in the evening. I could surf
Mm.
twice a day, no
Nice.
close. But then when
Hmm.
I but then when I lived in Hollywood, it was a very sad thing because although I loved living in Hollywood, it was a great house.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
living there, I could not get to the ocean anymore. It was just too hard. My
Mm.
be like, let's surf in the morning. Let's just go early. And then in the morning, it would still just take me just like no traffic. Yeah, 40 minutes to
Hmm.
get out to Malibu. And it was just
Mm. Hmm.
much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, like you said, LA is so big. I mean, and when you throw in the factors of the rush hour and the traffic, I mean, it's almost doubles. And then when it rains and when there's an accident, oh, forget it. I mean, it's almost like 3 times the time. Yeah, the hour.
It's funny you mention rain because you know how in Southern California, people do not, they're just completely thrown off by rain. Like when it
Yeah,
right, they don't know what to
right,
do. Uh,
right. Mhm.
Headline news when there's a drop of rain, and then of course it's going to be followed by news about car accidents because we don't know how to
Mhm.
wet roads.
Yeah, yeah. And that's so funny because it's so true because it's the first day of the rain. People, it seems like they forgot how to drive. Yeah.
And they actually often will say on the news like, "Oh, don't forget, it's the first rain in a while, so the roads are
Hmm.
extra slick because the roads are coated with oils, right?"
Yeah,
Whatever.
correct.
So we're
Hmm.
warned that it's the first rain.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's always funny when I see like in TV shows or movies where people will be in Malibu, and then all of a sudden, like they're in downtown. I'm like, you do you know how long it takes to get from Malibu?
Yeah.
And how are you there? In one, it's crazy.
Hmm. And there's only one road, right? It's the PCH. If PCH gets blocked or accident, I mean, forget it. There's really no way in the back way, is it?
You
From
can
Malibu.
you can take the canyon roads like Topanga.
Mm.
You can take
Hmm.
if you're further up Malibu, you can go another
Mm.
up canyon. There's like two or three canyon roads that will take you to the valley, and then you can come back down to downtown. But yeah,
Mm.
you're right. I mean, PCH is the quickest way, and it will still take you at
Hmm.
minimum, no
Hmm.
traffic, minimum 1 hour to get
Mm.
to downtown.
Mm. Okay. All right. Yeah, for me, I'm from LA, but I'm mostly in the central or or southern part of LA. And growing up, like in high schools and all that, learning to drive and get my license, I never really went to like the valley, the San Fernando Valley. I don't know why. We stereotype San Fernando Valley. It's like the valley, it's the air, it's the pollution, it's people, how they talk. So growing up and even to adulthood, I really never ventured too much in the valley, San Fernando Valley, Sherman Oaks, Studio City too much. Maybe later on I started doing it, but
Mhm.
still not enough than a lot of people. Yeah. What's your view on that? Why, I mean, growing up in schools, did you kind of have that stereotype about the valley, San Fernando Valley, about the air, the pollution, the valley girl and how they talk and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Um, the valley was always sort of seen as the um, not as attractive side of LA, and
Hmm.
that it seemed really far. But actually, the valley is not that far from, like, for example, Hollywood. It's just over the mountain.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
right.
it's very far. But for example, if you took Laurel Canyon from Hollywood, Laurel Canyon, that street,
Hmm. Hmm.
you go over.
Yeah.
Laurel Canyon is the shortest, by the way, of all those roads that take you over that mountain. If you take Laurel Canyon, it's only like 10 minutes, no traffic. It's only 10
Mm-hmm.
over that mountain. It's very quick, but for some reason, people will just they're mentally blocked from going to the valley. They don't even want to make friends. I've heard
Hmm.
people say, "I don't date 818." Have you heard that?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard that too. Yeah,
So
exactly. Uh-huh.
818, guys, if you don't know, 818 is the area code, which is the telephone area code for people living in the valley. Whereas in the city, the main part of LA, it's either 213 or 310. So people will be like, "I
Hmm.
don't," because they don't want to go into the valley. It's like a different
Hmm.
world.
Hmm. Exactly. And sometimes when you even drive there, you're like, wow, this is LA. Because I mean, it's different, right?
It
Just
feels
the neighborhood, the roads, for me at least, because like I said, I hardly drove around that area, but to me, it's just the vibe is different. The the housing and the neighborhoods are different. The streets, they're wider and things. It's just kind of different for me. Mm.
Yeah, it is different from the city side of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
We call it the
Mhm.
LA basin, I guess. Um,
Yes.
the
Hmm.
city side. But you know what? A lot of people who work in Hollywood like living in the valley because, well, first of all, it's a lot cheaper, but secondly, you get more
Hmm.
for your money, and also it's actually not that far from
Hmm.
from from Hollywood. And plus, like if you live, for example, in Studio City, it's actually
Hmm.
very easy to get to the studios. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that's why a lot of people from that work in Hollywood live in the valley for those
Hmm.
reasons. But
Hmm.
I'm not a
Yeah,
big
Studio City is nice. Yeah. It's
studio.
expensive, but it's really nice too. Yeah.
Yeah, Studio City is the Studio City, Sherman Oaks, Encino. Those are the expensive
Hmm.
areas of the
Yeah.
Toluca Lake, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I like Sherman Oaks too. Sherman Oaks and Studio City is one of my favorite spots in that area. Yeah. If I ever get a chance to go there. Mm. I was
Yeah.
actually trying to move to Studio City, but I just couldn't get the right price and the place that I wanted because also some of the housings there aren't as modern, right? So uh and I like something modern, so I ended up going south more.
Oh yeah. Um, you like how are you dealing with living outside of the U.S. in terms of like the age of the buildings and the housing and stuff? Because like some of the places I've been in Italy, I have stopped.
Hmm.
What I have stopped doing is I have stopped looking for anything described as charming, because
Mm.
that means old and the windows don't close and air leaks and there's no, this no sound noisy, no. So I'm at a point right now where I just want to live in a place that is in LA. I didn't care
Hmm.
necessarily for new construction because I like character, I like architectural.
Mm. Hmm.
But here, man, if some of these places quote with architectural character, they're real crap. Uh,
Mm.
and
Uh-huh.
and unless you're forking out big money where
Yeah.
this is properly restored,
Hmm.
it's not a great place to live. I mean, 3 days, 4 days you're on vacation, it's fine, but if you're
Yeah.
living there, it's not convenient.
Hmm. I mean, I lived in San Francisco, and for me, I had a hard time because I'm from LA. So I didn't like the architecture because it's an old city, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you go there, it's very expensive, and then all of a sudden you look at your apartment place, and it's like, really, this is what I'm paying for? This is what I'm getting? I mean, this is old, this is run down. You're looking at like 1930s, 1940s. Yeah, it has a lot of characters and all that, but I like something a little bit more modern, per se. Um, Here in Brazil, I mean, where I'm at, I mean, it's fine. It's not like 100% like in US. There's a lot of things that's missing, but it's still modern enough. It's not like I just described in Frisco, where it's 1950s, really old modern type thing. But the
Mhm.
difference here, it's weird in Brazil, is when you rent an apartment or buy a place, there's really no closet. There's not like a built-in closet or even cabinets in the kitchens or cabinets in the restroom. You literally have to buy things like wardrobes in order to put your clothes in a bedroom or cabinets in the kitchens. I mean, this is weird for me because when you're in the US, it's already there. You don't
Yeah.
have to add extra money or build things, things like that. So I find that strange.
Okay, so I guess it's a total American thing to have a walk-in closet, right? Where the closet is a
Yes.
mini room.
Uh-huh.
Well, for some
hmm
people, if you have a big house, it is the size of a room.
hmm Yes. There are some houses in Brazil that's really big that do have walk-in closets, but I think they probably got that from the US, from architect.
And those houses typically are like luxurious homes.
Yes, uh-huh. I mean, when you look at the house in Brazil, like, you know, pretty expensive homes, it's like a mansion in Brazil. I mean, in the US. I mean, here it's probably, let's just say $300,000, maybe even $400,000. I mean,
Mhm.
you're looking at maybe close to a $2 million house in the US. Of course, you can't compare because of the currency, the living standard, etc. But that's just a comparison of what a house is here in this country versus in the US. Hmm.
Uh, so for an
You,
American,
you know, they use like marbles, tiles, and that's a funny thing. They don't use like hardwood floorings or carpets. Everything is tile. Because they put water, they clean the floor, so everything is tile. And if you go to the kitchen or even the bathroom, you're talking about wall to wall tiles. It's not a wall like in the US. It's literally a tile. Mm.
yeah, I've noticed that as well here in Southern Europe. Maybe because
hmm
hot, they like to use tile, and I hate tile in like the
Uh-huh.
bedroom, in the living space, because I feel like I'm in a mausoleum, you know? It,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Right.
and plus, what happens is if you're living in an apartment, there's no sound deadening. So
hmm
because of all the hard surfaces, right? And then there's
hmm
tile right outside in the hallway as well. So the whole thing is you're living. It feels like you're living in a drum. I swear to God.
Yes. Yeah. And speaking about apartment living in the US is very expensive. Not many people understand that. They think that, okay, I'm going to have 3,000 or $5,000. I'm going to go to US and move there. And then
Mm,
they realize after a month or 2 months, they're broke if they don't have a job. So
yeah,
apartment in LA, I mean, Hollywood, oh my gosh, the apartment there is very expensive. And some parts of Orange County is very expensive. So you're looking at what, maybe give or take, I don't know about what it is now, but I'm guessing maybe 3,000 a month dollars that you're paying for maybe just a one bedroom in Southern California. Of course, that's maybe an average type thing, just depends the location, but you can be paying as high as 10,000 a month to
oh
as
yeah.
low as maybe 1,000 a month, right?
I think that 3,000 a month for a one bedroom is possible. But it's not even
hmm
guaranteed. Like it might not even be a nice one bedroom for 3,000
Yeah,
point.
right. So you're thinking like what, 4,000?
I think, yeah, because you know what? When I was still in Hollywood, I've heard of people renting, like they called it I think he called it a junior one bedroom, which is essentially
hmm
they just built sort of like a three-quarter height wall. It's
hmm
a studio, right? But they have
hmm
a quarter height wall, and so they called it a junior one bedroom. And
Mm,
I think they were paying like 3,000 a month. This was before
mm,
inflation. This was before,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly. Talking about after inflation and after the pandemic is even worse, right? So,
mhm.
yeah.
And if it's new
Yeah.
construction, then it's going to be even more expensive.
hmm hmm Yeah, that's how expensive it is in LA. And San Francisco is even what? Maybe if you're living in downtown San Francisco, you're probably paying like maybe at least a minimum of 5,000.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just the minimum. Yeah.
The difficulty of living in places like LA, San Francisco, New York is that if you cannot afford the rent in a decent area, the problem is,
hmm
okay, $3,000, you're thinking, oh, 3,000 is a lot of money. However, you might not even be in a very good area, which means you're
Yes.
compromised. And so I'm always telling
hmm
people, like my friends in Europe, I'm like, the problem in the US is that crime follows poverty. Um,
Yes.
and unlike, parts of, like in Europe, where just because it's a poor neighborhood doesn't mean you're going to get shot. Whereas in
hmm
the US, yes, it does mean you're going to get shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You drive in a wrong neighborhood and they don't see the car and they think that you're a rivalry gang or something, a gang rivalry. They'll just start shooting the car without even knowing who's in the car. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't know what you experience, but I've experienced a lot in LA because I was driving a lot, driving to, Boyle Heights and other parts of the city. And some people don't understand and realize that when you see in the news, people say, well, that teenager was shot because he was mistakenly as a gang rivalry or mistaken identity. No, gang members isn't a mistaken identity. They're doing it for sport. They go there, initiation, hey, you want to be in a gang, go shoot somebody. So this
Like,
is part of their culture in the gang culture, yeah, in LA. And
wow.
not many people really understands that or even show it in the news because they don't want people to panic. So, but gang members, they actually shoot people just because it's a sport to them.
Oh my God. So, well, I guess the silver lining is that these types of things, they happen
hmm
in isolated areas where if you just stay
Yes.
in those areas, you're going to be fine. So I wouldn't
hmm
want people to think that all American cities are dangerous. It's
Yes.
American cities have dangerous areas. You just have to
hmm
steer clear of those dangerous
hmm
areas, right?
hmm Yeah, you got to know your whereabouts when you go to LA, for
Yeah.
example, you go visit. You got to ask the front desk, where's a good place for me to go? Is it safe? What place for me I shouldn't visit? Google it too, because
Yes.
you don't want to be caught somewhere and lost somewhere in a bad area neighborhood, because there's violence everywhere around the country, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on where you are. So you just got to be smart about it.
Right. And I know, and you people who don't like to drive, I know there's a lot of you. When you visit a city, you're like, yeah, I'll just walk. It's like, okay, well, you might want to think
Yeah,
about just
exactly.
walking, because before you head out of your hotel, you ask the front desk, is it safe to walk, and then tell them where you're
hmm
going. Because you have to
Yes,
do that when you're in the U.S. You have to ask, is it safe to walk around at night in this neighborhood? Which will,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why we people from LA, we don't walk. Nobody walks in LA. That kind of like a motto, right? Nobody walks in
nobody walks in L.A. Well, also
LA. Yeah.
not just for that reason, but just because everything's so spread out anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I mean like downtown. If you go visit downtown after 5 p.m., it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
Like maybe 5 or 6 p.m. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because for many years now, they've been selling downtown as a walkable district. However, even downtown LA is ginormous. You can't
Yes.
walk
Uh-huh.
all downtown LA. It's really big.
Right. Yeah. Now the place you can walk is where the crypto center is, right? Where the Lakers play and that kind of thing. That
Uh,
part is fine. People are walking there, but
yeah,
downtown LA, that's a different story. Yeah. During the daytime, lunchtime, everybody's walking. It almost looks like New York, a lot of people walking. But once you hit like 6 p.m., it's like a ghost town. Yeah.
right. During the day, yes, people are, they're coming out of their offices. They're just
hmm
walking with the few block radius around their office,
hmm
because
Yes.
downtown is huge.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we could do a podcast on the do's and don'ts of visiting the U.S., or like advice
hmm
to travelers. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That would be good.
So, okay, okay, we've come to the end of this podcast now. We're up on our 45 minutes, so it's time to end, guys. But thank you so much for listening. We're gonna have another one of these soon, so please stay tuned. And once again, thank you, Leon, for the wonderful conversation.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you, Ben, for having me, and thanks everyone for listening. And see you guys around next time.
See you guys later. Bye.
Ciao.